Welcome to B&C Car Reviews channel. Praga Bohema, Czech hypercar, blurs the line between road car and race car. Praga is a Czech automaker on the verge of launching a spectacular hypercar with a power-to-weight ratio that makes the McLaren Senna look obese. We've now driven that car, the Bohema, in prototype form on a circuit in the UK. Although its name might not be familiar, Praga has a long history. Before the Second World War, this Czechoslovakian company hand-built modest numbers of elegant and expensive automobiles and motorcycles. At the end of the war, now on the communist side of the Iron Curtain, there was no need or demand for such automotive decadence, and so Praga became a manufacturer of military vehicles and armaments. After communism fell, the company diversified into making trucks, aircraft, racing karts, and actual race cars, with no fewer than 8 of its Praga R1 sports prototype cars competing in a dedicated championship in the UK last year. The motorsport experience has been incorporated into the Praga Bohema, a limited edition model that is definitely better thought of as road legal rather than street sensible. For proof, look no further than its invigorating combination of a 2,164-pound dry weight, without fuel, and a 700 horsepower output, this coming from a dry-sump version of the Nissan GT-RS 3.8-liter twin-turbo V6, the engine reworked by well-known UK-based tuner Litchfield. Praga is also keen for you to know that the power output is just regarded as a starting point, with the strong possibility of more powerful versions to follow, potentially even including one that would make 982 horsepower, giving the car a power-to-weight ratio of a single horsepower per kilogram of mass. Power reaches the rear axle through a race-grade 6-speed Hewland sequential transmission. It looks like a race car, but the Bohema is unrelated to the existing R1, as it uses an entirely different carbon fiber core structure. As with the Aston Martin Valkyrie, it has been designed around a teardrop-shaped cabin pushed as close to the car's center line as possible to improve aerodynamic performance. Standing next to the car, first impressions are of how much isn't there, given the size of the spaces behind the minimal bodywork, which create channels to sculpt airflow. Praga claims that the combination of a huge underbody diffuser in the rear wing helped the car make a peak 1980-plus pounds of downforce at 155 mph. Getting into the cabin with any degree of dignity is impossible, and the Praga makes even other hypercars look spacious and practical. The doors would be better described as windows, being small glazed panels on either side of the canopy cockpit that open upward. Entry is made by shuffling across the side pod, bracing on the roof and bodywork, and then sliding down into the seat. All but the smallest pilots will likely need to remove the removable steering wheel before attempting to get in. When riding two up, the passenger will need to carefully fold their arms so as not to impede the driver's ability to turn the wheel. Once in the driver's seat, the view is mostly of a slightly incongruous leather-trimmed steering wheel that incorporates a digital dashboard and has carbon fiber buttons on each side. The car we drove was a prototype, but beyond its tuxedo tightness, the cabin felt impressively well finished. Our drive took place on the Dunsfold track in Surrey, England, best known for its use by the Top Gear TV show. Running in a figure-8 layout of the sort favored by demolition derby promoters, we were lucky to have the circuit to ourselves. But although there are tire walls and gravel traps in some of the most obviously crashable areas, it isn't a true racetrack, and there are still plenty of obstacles it would be easy to hit at speed. Fortunately, the Bohema proves to have an abundance of grip, both mechanical and aerodynamic, and also the sort of handling balance that brings reassurance in something so potent. The transmission shifts with a clunk at low speeds, and the Nissan V6 brings a buzzing vibration into the cabin. But unlike Aston's Valkyrie, which is almost painfully noisy inside even when wearing a helmet, the Bohema is not excessively loud. Visibility is good for something so low and narrow, with the view through the curved windshield pretty much like looking through the visor of a helmet. While hugely fast, the Bohema prototype also felt reassuringly stable. As in the GT-R, the Nissan engine isn't a big rever, meeting its redline at just 7,000 RPM. but it has a breadth of mid-range muscle that helps fill the gaps between the behemoth's ratios, and that means there's little penalty in either upshifting early or downshifting late. Top speed is gearing limited to a relatively modest 186 miles per hour, on the basis that it would be hard to go faster on almost any race course. 2023 Audi R8 GT is a playful, traction-limited goodbye. Well, this is finally the end. Both for Audi's 5.2-liter V10 Screamer, and V10s in general, as well as its mid-engine R8 supercar. It seems 2023 is the last model year, and this limited edition R8 GT, which lives among the rest of the R8 Coupe and Spider lineup, the last variant. While that previous cluster of words is enough to sour the mood, the R8 GT will do just the opposite. It's easy to drive, controllable on the throttle. Sweeping through a corner, we could quickly place it right at the limit of the rear end's traction, where adding a touch more power caused the back end to step out. Playfully, never frightfully. We still miss the gated manual from the first generation R8, but the 7-speed dual-clutch automatic in the GT nevertheless shifts even faster than before. In its most aggressive modes, the ferocious energy of a wide-open throttle upshift at the 8,700 RPM redline reverberates through the carbon fiber and aluminum monocoque structure. Audi is selling just 333 GTs worldwide, with 150 coming to the US. There will be 50 each in red, gray, and black, which amounts to one for only every other Audi dealer. Each car is labeled with its build number, the sequence sunk beneath the surface of the carbon fiber center console trim. We spent a day in southern Spain at Circuito Monte Blanco, where Audi had cars 62 through 64 on hand for lapping, plus a few more pre-production units that aren't part of the official count. That's right, the more desirable early number cars get built later in the production cycle. Getting the 602 horsepower state of tune that was previously only available in all-wheel drive R8s, the GT is 40 horses stronger than the regular rear-drive R8 and the most powerful rear-drive car ever from Audi. Maybe that's why the Quattro brand is really leaning into drifting talk. In fact, the R8 GT is the only R8 to get a new feature called Torque Rear. Audi officials say labeling it drift mode is too iffy from a regulatory perspective, with 7 settings of escalating allowability of rear wheel slip. It's more of a fun mode than a track tool, programmed to allow a goodly amount of wheel spin while making it a bit more difficult for an underskilled driver to go all Mustang exiting cars and coffee. Click the new checkered flag button that's sprouted on the steering wheel and then turn a knob to adjust. Level 1 doesn't allow enough slip for a recognizable drift, while Level 7 provides only the lightest touches of power reduction. Unlike Ferrari's side slip angle control, however, Torque Rear isn't a spin preventer. Ask us how we know. The GT isn't entirely a part-spin car, but it does borrow more than a few bits from the existing lineup. The carbon fiber front anti-roll bar, for instance, is an $1,100 option on other R8s. It has exactly the same stiffness as the bar it replaces and saves 4.4 pounds. The GT also gets the shorter gearing from the all-wheel drive variants, with the 3rd through 7th ratios shorter by 4 to 29%, and standard carbon ceramic brakes and bucket seats, which are part of the $12,900 dynamic package on other R8s. Forged 20-inch wheels are new for the GT and are wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 rubber in the same sizes as the rest of the lineup. European R8 GTs get an optional coilover suspension that's adjustable for height and damping, but it's not available on US cars. Ours stick to a fixed setup, skipping even the adaptive dampers from the all-wheel drive variants. If the GT's $253,290 price seems dear, it's probably because it's $91,895 more than a regular 2023 rear-drive R8 coupe. But after checking all the option boxes that are included on the GT, the premium drops to $53,900. GTs also were a comprehensive carbon fiber aero package, including a large, fixed rear wing, front diffuser and canards, and an element behind the rear wheels. US cars come fairly loaded, which is why they're slightly heavier than their Euro counterparts. Standard equipment includes laser headlights, sport exhaust, dynamic steering, a B&O stereo, and carbon fiber mirror caps, door sills, and side blades. Still, the GT is a claimed 55 pounds lighter than the regular rear-drive R8 and roughly 120 pounds lighter than the all-wheel drive coupe. Part of the weight loss is a reduction in sound deadening that makes the R8 louder, and US cars are louder still, thanks to the removal of the particulate filters required in the European market. It was hard to get a good read from the Eurospec cars we drove, as the V10's sweet escalating melodies were always muffled by a helmet. Acceleration won't be able to match that of the all-wheel drive R8, plan on a 60 miles per hour time in the very low 3s and a quarter mile right around 11 flat. The GT's fixed back bucket seats are relaxed fit for their genre, they're neither narrow nor have steep bolsters on their periphery. They retain a power height adjustment and manual fore-aft. But this seems to fit with the R8's more daily drivable vibe, including a luggage shelf behind the front seats, compared with its relentlessly manic corporate cousin, the Lamborghini Huracan. Speaking of which, the GT is similar in concept to the rear-drive Huracan Technica. If you're wondering how this last, best R8 might stack up to the Corvette Z06, Audi says you're not one of its customers and claims there's next to zero overlap with Corvette buyers. Nevertheless, you won't be surprised that the R8 struggles to justify a price that's more than twice as expensive as the Z06. The Z06 makes more power, although it's more than 100 pounds heavier, and revs nearly as high. The R8's grip levels sure didn't feel as lofty as the Z06, although a slightly damp track during our drive certainly had something to do with it. But we feel confident saying it would be hard to find a track where the Z06 wouldn't win. Our 2022 Ford Bronco Badland Sasquatch has finally arrived for a long-term stay. Introduction. It was with arms wide open that we welcomed the 2022 Ford Bronco Badland Sasquatch for a 40,000-mile test. To say we were excited for it to arrive is an understatement. After the Bronco beat the Jeep Wrangler in a comparison test, we were sure it would make for a worthy addition to our long-term fleet. Really, the minute Ford decided to bring the Bronco back for 2021, we were filled with nostalgia and knew we would want to get our greasy paws all over that thing. It's just a badass off-roading beast that we can take to the Michigan sand dunes and one that will help us get through our long, cold, snowy winter. In speccing our Bronco, we went with what we thought were some obvious choices. We opted for the 4-door model for its extra utility. We also decided to go with the 7-speed manual transmission because, well, we love shifting through those gears ourselves, save the manuals. With that 7-speed manual comes a lower crawl gear for when you want to do some serious off-roading and need that ultra-short gearing to traverse the terrain. We also went with the Badlands trim, which is one step lower than the Wild Track near the top of the hierarchy. It adds Bilstein position-sensitive dampers and front anti-roll bar disconnect. That gave our Bronco a base price of $48,185 versus $39,475 for the absolutely cheapest way to get a 4-door with a manual transmission, Big Bend trim. If we had stuck with that base Badlands, we would have ended up with an 8.0-inch touchscreen, 33-inch tires, and 17-inch gray-painted aluminum wheels. We decided to add the high package for an additional $2,790, which most notably gave us heated front seats, a 12.0-inch touchscreen, a 360-degree view camera, and a rear camera mirror. Additionally, we tacked on the Sasquatch package for $4,090. The Sasquatch package added 35-inch tires, electronic locking front and rear differentials, and 17-inch beadlock high-gloss black aluminum wheels. To cap it all off, we opted for a hardtop in gray, $695, a towing package, $595, a modular front bumper with tow hooks, $575, a cargo area protector, $120, and all-weather floor mats, $160. After completing the break-in procedure in the owner's manual, which non-specifically says to avoid aggressive or high-speed driving, heavy braking, and towing for the first 1,000 miles, we laid into it with our initial instrumented testing. The base engine, a 300 horsepower turbocharged 2.3-liter inline-4, powers our Bronco. It delivered a 60 miles per hour time of 7.4 seconds. The Bronco Raptor did it almost 2 seconds faster at 5.6. That's also nearly a second slower than another Bronco 4-cylinder automatic, which benefits from a brake torque launch. It certainly wasn't for a lack of effort, however, as launches with our manual trans Bronco started with a redline clutch dump. Our long-termer pulled 0.70 G on the skid pad and came to a halt from 70 miles per hour in 204 feet. This Bronco weighed in at 5,073 pounds, making it one of the lighter four-door examples we've tested. The Raptor, at 5,764 pounds, was the heaviest. So far the biggest downside to our Bronco is both the wind and interior noise when driving on the highway. With our high package and hardtop option, we got the marine-grade vinyl seats, and with those seats and our Badlands trim level, a sound-deadening headliner is not automatically included. We could have added it at no cost, but we didn't, and now we're wishing we had. That aside, we look forward to having all sorts of fun with this Bronco over its 40,000 miles with us. Be sure to check back to see where we go and what we do with this awesome off-roading machine. Months in fleet, 3 months current mileage, 6,699 miles. Average fuel economy, 16 miles per gallon. Fuel tank size, 16.9 gallons. Observed fuel range, 270 miles. Service, $0 normal wear, $0 repair, $0. Damage and destruction, $0.